So one of the first things that I think you should do when you have a new WordPress website is you should kind of manage the settings. I think that that's a fairly important aspect of your website, right? So the first thing, well, what we're going to do is just kind of go along. We already know how to kind of use the dashboard. Now we're just going to be able to kind of log into the dashboard and then go into the sidebar of settings. And the first one is going to be general. We have writing, reading, discussion, and media. Permalinks, I'll see if we have time in this video. If not, we'll just talk about it in the next video. But the settings, so very generally, in the general settings, site title, what do you want your site to be called, right? For us, we have it as WPR Adventures, your tagline, and this is generally what shows up. For example, at the top bar in Safari, you'll see the website name, dash, and then the tagline. So whatever you want that to be, your travel destination. And if you use if you use the simple textual based logo, as in it's just the site title and tagline, well then the tagline should show underneath if that's how your theme works, right? But if you actually upload a logo, and we'll show you how to do that in the future, then you would have to manually insert that. But generally this tagline and the site title is simply just for, I guess, textual based for the browser, specific for the browser, and also for search engines. What's your address, your WordPress address, your URL, sorry, and just remember that it's different. www.wpvrl.com, tv.com is different from just wpvrltv.com, right? If we added a www, it actually would be a different website, right? They're different. They're actually different. Completely different domains. WordPress will direct them accordingly, but this was just, you don't change this simply because when you installed WordPress, you must have installed it on that. Or that's what I told you to do. And for me, I think this is much easier simply because nowadays a lot of people just utilize this when they refer to a website. They just refer to like that rather than typing out the www, right? And the reason why I mentioned this is generally it makes no difference. Generally, people just type in the domain name by itself, nothing else. The reason why it makes a difference is in acquiring backlinks. And I'll talk about actually what backlinks are in the future, but very briefly is that if you have people backlinks just provide authority. More backlinks you have, in theory, means that more websites are talking about you or are saying, this is a great resource, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, if they send a backlink to this website versus the www version, effectively they are different, and so effectively you are kind of drowning out or kind of, I guess, deconcentrating the number of backlinks that you have. So just be sure of what it is. Pretty much don't change it, but just be sure of what is the actual website name, and you'll see that right there. Email address, this is just the address used for admin purposes, like a new user notification. Membership, who can register for a new site? If you're having a membership site, obviously you will want to say anyone can register. If you're not having a membership site, well then, and you're just manually adding new users, well then you probably wouldn't want to say anyone can register, right? But that solely depends on what type of website you're running and what your end goals are. New user default role, I would say that you should always have a subscriber role. I can't think of a reason why you would want to do it otherwise, simply because if you have these two options checked off and all of a sudden now you say you accidentally leave it as administrator, well now anytime a new user registers, they'll have access to everything. And I'll talk about this when I actually talk about user roles. But yeah, administrator versus subscriber. Subscriber has access to practically nothing, just their own user profile. Administrator has access to everything. So imagine anyone can register, and it would be an administrator is the default role. Well, now anybody who registers can edit your website. That's not necessarily good. This is just the time and date, things like that, time format. You can change that however you please and just save the changes. And so the next thing that we're going to be talking about is actually this writing. So when you write to it, you write a new post, what are the options or what are the settings that it's going to show? And so there's not too many options. It would be fairly simple. But for example, when you write something, will it convert an emoticon to the actual graphical display? And if you don't use emoticons, it makes no difference to you. But sure, just check it off because the emoticons look nicer in my opinion. but also maybe your commenters use the emoticon. So if you don't necessarily use it, maybe they do. So it should automatically correct invalidly nested HTML automatically. And so this is, entirely up to you. If you're not initially adding a lot of HTML, or if you don't necessarily want it to, because potentially this could be very bad. Potentially, if it automatically changes it, but it changes it in a way that's not necessarily what you want, that could be potentially bad, simply because when you make these mistakes, in my opinion, it could be hard for WordPress to identify how you necessarily wanted to make. Generally, if you add something in and it's a mistake, it just won't show up when you test it out. It just won't work. And so that may be a better option. So I leave it unchecked. Default post category. When you have multiple categories, I don't think we have actually gone through yet how to add new categories, things like that. Then you can make it different, right? And it just easier for you when you add a new post. It can already preset to a certain category. Post format, different types of post formats depending on your theme. You can just leave it as standard. Post via mail. If you want to post via email, then you would have to fill out all this. I have never actually done that, simply because the post that I generally have needs some specific formatting rather than just simply textual based. That's why it never was very attractive of an option for me. One thing that is interesting thing is this press this option. If you ever want to, I'm not entirely sure what the name of it is, but I forget if it's called annotating. But for example, if you ever seen articles where they've kind of had these quotes from another website and it says from, for example, according to Yahoo News, right? If you want to have that option of getting these little snippets from other websites, you can just use this press this bookmarklet. And it'll make more sense if you actually put it to use. If you utilize a lot of quotes from other websites, you cite sources from other websites, that could be very useful. But if it's all just your own content, very simple, it's not going to be beneficial for you at all, right? And so the next one would be reading. So how will a user read your actual post? Or so the front, how they see it, I guess, is better way to put it. Front page display. Do you want a static page or your latest post? And this depends on the theme that you're using. If the theme that you're using is designed to be kind of a blog, right? Generally, you're probably going to just want it to be your latest post. But if your theme is designed to be kind of that static page, for example, a business website or a portfolio, is probably not going to be a blog as your front page. And this depends just on the theme. So if you want it to be a static page, and this will tell you in the documentation of your theme, and we'll show you actually how to create a static page or how to use a theme that kind of utilizes both of these, right? Your latest post or a static page. But since we're probably going to be making a blog to start off with, just keep it as your latest post. How many blog posts to show in your RSS feed? How many to show? And do you want to show full text in your RSS feed or a summary? And search engine visibility. In my opinion, you should never have this option checked off, because you would want more traffic, unless it's very sensitive to the point where you don't want the public to see it. It's something that you just want by word of mouth. For example, it's something that's a personal website, very personal website that is only to be shared with people close to you. You don't want the world to be reading about certain things about your life. Then you should click that. So discussion. This is one thing that I will talk about actually when we talk about how to moderate comments. So I won't talk too much into detail of this because there's a lot of options. But as you can see, you can allow anybody to post a comment or email me whenever anyone posts a comment. Many different options there as well. So we're not going to touch those right now. Media. So this media option, there are a couple different options, but these are just the sizes. So I would not actually touch them, simply because these are, in my opinion, good sizes. These are the default sizes. For example, when we actually show you how to add media to your website, there's thumbnail size, there's medium size, there's large size, and there's the actual size of the post. And so that's where they're getting these numbers from. So if you ever want to change them in the future, that's where you would do it. And yeah, I think that for now that's going to be good. We'll talk about permalinks. I think that it'd be good to talk about in a separate video. and you would just save all these changes for your settings. And I want to mention though is that if you ever have plugins, if you ever have future plugins, this is where you would also change the settings for them. Some of them will be down here, some of them will be down below in their own separate menu items, depending on how much settings there would be.